Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for another More Insights and Strategy Insider Podcast. An Insider Podcast, we have the most influential executives to talk strategy, talk product, just get to know them a lot better. And I'm really pleased to introduce Dave Sipes, CEO of 8x8. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And Pat, thanks for having me on. It's excellent to finally make your video podcast.
No, I know it's great. And, I feel blessed and lucky that I know you've done a lot of on-stage appearances out there, but, from a show aspect or podcast, I think this is one of the first since you've taken the helm of the company.
Yeah, it's great to have this type of reach. I think this is the new age, right? With video podcasting, getting into more organizations. I do stage elements and you get a few hundred people, but it's great to get out in front of much more people.
Yeah. So Dave, probably best place to start, because we haven't had you on before, is let's maybe talk about 8x8. You're used by thousands of companies out there, hundreds of thousands of companies, but maybe talk about what the company does.
Yeah, well, we have millions of users, but they're all business users, right? Employees. And what the company does is we focus on enterprise cloud communications. And we do both internal communications, which is typically like employee communications, as well as external communications, which is with your customers and your prospects and your vendors. And our specialty is really focused on companies that have high value customers that want to present a unified face to those customers, whether they're talking to someone like that had a product or doing a transaction with a contact center or doing a billing interaction or talking to the CEO. And we feel companies that are able to present a more unified face, real-time information, one look to the customer are advantaged and strategically advantaged in executing against their category.
So in other words, you've been super busy over the last few years. I mean, essentially, we all had to get into this mode where we're working in a different place, and that included folks in the contact center as well. And it is amazing. Must have been an incredible time for you to jump in and join the company. I mean, it was literally in the middle of the pandemic, and not your first rodeo. I mean, you were COO at RingCentral. You helped build that company. So I think a question a lot of people would have is, what are some of your learnings of observation joining 8x8 over a year ago?
Yeah, like you said, Pat, I've been in cloud communications for over a decade. And originally the key aspect of cloud was bringing in remote workers, distributed organizations, doing that effectively. And that kind of it's kind of checked, right? With pandemic and working remotely, it kind of proved the need. And then now I think we move into a much more important phase. I think of this as, if you think back to, we had the PC revolution and there was this productivity paradox where everyone got PCs, but productivity didn't improve. And it wasn't until networking or connecting all those became important. I think we're kind of at that influx right now with cloud communications. We've enabled all the individual persons to work over cloud communications, but we still haven't connected it to the other applications in the organization. And that's where you're going to get the networking effect and the true productivity enhancement. So that's what we work on at 8x8, is bringing all the employees, all internal and external communications, and then bringing those integrations to your other workflow applications, to lighting up different endpoints that different employees are working within, but making that seamless and bringing information up real time. So think about the 360 view of the customer. How important is that now that when one person talks to a customer versus another, that you have that real-time information. If you think back to like jumping around in a contact center, and every time you go to a new division, you have to re-enter your account code, and like that, those experiences suck, right? So we're really focused at bringing that 360 view, integrating with your other enterprise applications, and making every employee real-time aware of the context of that interaction.
Yeah, I love that approach, and you really are an enabler of customer experience. And while I hear and I listen to the mythology of self-healing products and self-healing services, the reality is that people are going to need help, and employees inside of organizations are going to need better ways to connect, the front office to the back office, right, where a lot of that information and capability exists. And at least from my analyst point of view, that's exactly what you're enabling, and not only today, but I think more importantly in the future. It's funny. I would say a little over a year ago, I was doing a talk about, hey, everybody want to talk about what's next, and I made this statement that says, actually, after this is going to be even harder. Like, what do you mean? Like, remote is just grueling, right? And I said, well, imagine the experience of hybrid, where you're going to have some people working from home, and others who not, some who had never done it before. That is actually going to be harder for the industry to solve than remote. From your point of view, you talk to customers every day. What do they need to solve most for this next phase of hybrid work?
Yeah, and I agree with you that remote only is actually easier than hybrid, but it's missing things, right? And we're able to stay very productive, but you become less attached and
Yeah, and
less.
how do you manage teams,
Yeah,
right? I mean, so hard.
yeah. So getting people together is still critically important, and having that ability to interact and get attachments is key for an organization, but it's difficult in the hybrid work. And we are working on different aspects. You're a product person, right? So one, like, I'll give you a couple examples of things that we've done recently that try to help organizations do that effectively. One is, we came out with a new front desk product, and think of the person at the front desk, how they work in a hybrid world. Like, now you have some people in, now you have other people, you don't know who's in the office, and you have communications coming in a high volume environment. You don't know whether to send them to an individual or send them somewhere else in the organization. So we've connected that person with all the tools to see status of every person in the company, as well as status of like call queues in the contact center. So like, we brought the whole organization together, and they bring in modern messaging as well, so they can interact with that first experience you give as a company to a customer, and which is like completely changed in a hybrid environment. Another example is we've taken speech analytics, quality management, coaching. Like, coaching is one of those things that becomes very difficult in a more remote environment, right? But you're not overhearing and listening over the shoulder of someone that giving them advice. So we have ability for quality management coaching, which is transcription, real-time sentiment analysis of voice conversations as well as chat conversations, and then bubbling that up to supervisors. It's common in like a large-scale contact center, but we've enabled it through our Conversation IQ product to every employee. And we're seeing it utilized in places that haven't had that ability to create that professionalism and coaching, things like an IT help desk or accounts receivable queue, or other areas in the organization that you're still trying to present a professional, seamless face of the organization to your customers. And we do that easily through a toggle, no heavy deployment of additional software. So those are like two product examples that we've rolled out recently. We continue to work on additional items. We can go into some of that later.
I find it so funny. I think 10 years ago, somebody said like voice was dead. Like, it's all going to be video. And I understand in video is part of voice, but what you can pick up in voice is absolutely incredible. And for examples that you just gave on sentiment analysis, I mean, listen, I might not have the best EQ on the world. I think my IQ is probably higher than my EQ. But and I would love in certain circumstances for somebody to maybe give me a hint or something like that. And when you get to a B2B or a B2C type of interaction, I think that gets super important. So I want to drill down a little bit on Microsoft Teams. And they've made a lot of headway in the market for certain reasons, certain areas. How are you augmenting these Teams enterprise efforts as they change it from a video and audio tool to more of a collaboration tool?
Yeah, and Teams, just to give perspective, Teams is fundamentally used as a team messaging application, but broadly utilized, and it's been one of the faster adoption products, especially that Microsoft's ever had. But there's 270 million monthly active users using it for team messaging, and some of those using it for video. But when we think about enabling it for voice and telephony, less than 5%, about 4% of those users are actually enabled for enterprise cloud telephony communications.
I appreciate you, by the way. I appreciate you. I think I got the intro maybe opposite, but thank you.
But I think it's an important application. Like, we want to light up all relevant applications with voice communications and do that on a backbone that is across the whole organization, so we can tap into some of these powerful tools we talked about, like sentiment analysis. And you talked about hints, which is like assist technology, bringing like robotic technology into helping you stay alert in real time with customers. So lighting up those Teams endpoints with enterprise telephony is a huge future opportunity for the industry. And people are doing it through service providers as well as cloud communication providers like 8x8. And we do things like augment that endpoint with ability to manage call queues and access things like business SMS and voicemail and things like that, which creates an enhancement. But not every employee is on that endpoint. Some are, like in your contact center, on Salesforce. Some on your front lines are using, like, we provide software, mobile endpoints, as well as hardware, phone endpoints. Bringing all that together under one reliable, high quality service that then does, getting back to the beginning, that networking effect into all your applications is the real opportunity. So I think Teams is, while a great application for messaging and some video, getting that into telephony communications, it's complex. A lot of CIOs are looking at it right now. I do think it's important to do. And we really lean in on enabling that throughout your organization. And we do a couple things there. One is we also do it like on a global basis. So providing cloud communications globally has been difficult. Every country has been regulated separately. And so you have to go in and become compliant in every country. We operate in over 54 countries today, which is the largest footprint that anyone has. And it is accessing about 90% of the world's GDP. So we do almost every major country, and we do it from a cloud communication basis. So we can bring all your employees onto one system.
Yeah. So in other words, I mean, you make Teams a whole lot better, a whole lot consistent, and in many ways global. And that consistency of data and the consistency also for the experience, it sounds really important to your customers.
Absolutely. And, connecting all, like bringing the whole organization, we talk about bringing product experts or back office experts to your customers has been difficult for large organizations. They fundamentally funneled all their communications to their lowest paid employees. And that makes it difficult to be very responsive to your customers, right?
Yeah, and listen, whether again, this whole hybrid model, whether they're on a smartphone at their house, whether they're on a corporate phone in the office, and everything in between, it's important to be able to capture that data, capture that information, and have the seamless experience. There's so many different elements of the work experience that, again, this reinforces the hybrid is harder than remote, right? You could have everybody sitting in one place, everybody having consistency, but that's just not the reality of today. Dave, I would love to end this conversation talking about the global economy and the recession. I mean, I think half my conversations now with enterprises, the press, have to do with this, right? How do you think this will impact CIOs and the business decision makers in the lines of business here in the U.S. And around the world?
Yeah, well, obviously, with money is a little more expensive, right? And trying to fight inflation.
Not free. It's not free anymore, is it?
Yeah, it was kind of free for a while. So you have to treat your business differently. You have to be wise, where you spend those incremental dollars. And in that environment, and it's not an uncommon environment that, we've been through it dozens of times in the last 100 years, and we did it in 2008. But the CIO, the IT organization, gains power in the company because it's important in what they're doing, right? Providing consistency, providing good total cost of ownership for the organization. And so we see that happening more. And what is interesting is often there are projects, and this is one, moving from legacy communication, which is like you're running connected to a bunch of different service providers that you have a team on, and then trying to do some of those integrations expensively with other applications. Moving that to a cloud environment saves money for these organizations. And so we like to talk to those CIOs who are gaining power in their organization that this is, and as they're trying to not do a bunch of unnecessary projects, that this is one of the critical projects because it frees up money, frees up time, frees up their resources to attack additional projects in the organization. So we talk about the cost of doing nothing. We will go in and analyze for these CIOs. Hey, this is how much it's costing you to status quo. So I think that's important for large enterprises is don't, where you're paralyzed, don't become paralyzed where it's important to make maneuvers and that it frees up capital and allows you to pursue additional projects. So I do see that ongoing over the next, and who knows how long it'll last. Is it 3 months? Is it 9 months? Right. Is it 2 years? It could be a while. But this is an important phase for organizations as they get frugal, get lean, get mean, and remain very competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah, so Dave, I spent a lot of time talking with CEOs, boards of directors, CIOs, and I've lived through a few different recessions. And one of the differences here is in prior recessions, let's say right after 2008 with the banking crisis, the ears were closed on technology was an expense, not necessarily an enabler of the key challenges. And what I'm hearing more and more, which I think is a positive point, is they're talking about technology being looking at it in terms of being recession proof, in that if it can help me with my people problem, right? One of the challenges, well, not challenges, I guess it's a plus. Even though number of people in the workforce has declined, the number of unemployed people have not declined. And whether it's frontline workers or office workers, people are having a hard time finding people to fill jobs. And then there's supply chain. And if you can help companies with those two things, or make reduce expenses, obviously, or give a better customer experience you can monetize, these folks are open ears. So I think you showing them how, like you said, explaining to them exactly the benefit that they could get from those, I think can be incredibly powerful. And my hope is that technology is recession proof, like yours. And it sounds from, my research and everything you're talking about that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and I'm not sure all technology is recession proof, but
I'm glossing over it. Yes.
We have new challenges and they require new tools, right?
Yes.
Having a remote hybrid workforce, having less engagement attachment to the organization, and more rotation of employees across companies creates the need for greater enablement. Like you're bringing on more new employees, you need greater enablement, greater training, greater knowledge transfer, and greater connective tissue in the organization. So I think that's things like communication services integrated to your applications, where your knowledge is. That is a critical, like we have a critical need. This is critical capability that helps you address that need.
Yeah, better said than I. Not all technology that actually helps you with your people problems, your supply chain problems, making money, or saving money. So, Dave, this has been great. I'd love to have you on again, but I really appreciate your time, and I love that we get to we could bring not only Dave to the forefront here, but 8x8 also. And I'm raring to go and doing more research on your company and your capabilities. But I've really enjoyed my time, and hopefully we can have you on again.
That sounds great, Pat. Thanks, and would love to be on again in the future.
That'd be great. For everybody out there, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. If you have commentary, positive or negative, you can hit me up on Twitter. Let me know. Have a great day. Have a great night. Wherever